One morning, as the sun's rays and a gentle breeze found their way through the window, Korin Locke, our protagonist, awoke. He peered outside and was taken aback to see towering houses and an academy, suddenly realizing he had been transported inside the very game he had played 3 years ago. He had become the avatar of a game character in the heroic legend of Arhan, a game filled with perilous events within an academy, complete with epic narratives that even touched upon apocalyptic scenarios. Despite the shock, Korin Locke smiled, comforting himself with the thought, "It's alright because the main character will handle everything. I'm just an extra, a mere NPC in the beginner's quest, where the main character saves a villager. As long as the story unfolds as it did in the game, all will be resolved." With newfound determination, Korin ventured outside, exchanging pleasantries with the denizens. He decided to locate the game's main character, Park Sihu, destined for fame and fortune. Korin set out in search of the starting point in the game and soon spotted Park Sihu, sitting and muttering about sweet potatoes and Sprite. Korin couldn't help but wonder, Sprite? That's not part of this game. Who is this guy? Suddenly, Park Sihu sprang to his feet, declaring, "I will live for my own sake." Efficiency. Korin quickly chimed in, "Hey, me too." Both Korin and Park Sihu were ordinary individuals thrust into game avatars, but Park Sihu had a unique advantage, a stat window. The only problem was that he had never played the game before. However, Korin was determined to guide him. Korin advised, "You said you wanted to be a mage, right? You should invest in intelligence stats, and in the next story, you'll find a crucial skill book. Don't ever forget about it." Korin reflected, "I've played every story and explored every possible route in the heroic legend of Arhan. With someone like me helping, we have a significant advantage." Their teamwork was put to the test when a monster suddenly appeared behind Korin, lunging at him. Park Sihu reacted swiftly, protecting Korin with a spell. He then turned to Korin and inquired about his well-being. Korin, wielding a spear, joined forces with Park Sihu, confident in their partnership. With Korin's knowledge of the game and Sihu's stat window and player system, they made a formidable duo. They believed they could save countless lives, prevent the world from ending, and eventually find a way back to Earth. After vanquishing the monster, they rested atop a pile of defeated foes. Park Sihu handed Korin an elixir, remarking, "When did you get this? It's as good as a low-class elixir." As Korin was about to drink the elixir, he couldn't help but notice Park Sihu's disdainful look. He mused, "If there's one thing that disappoints me, it's that everyone's male. This game's charm lies in its fantasy action, diverse heroines, and dating simulator features." Yet, Park Sihu seemed to have steered clear of any romantic involvement and had only enlisted men in the party, resulting in an all-male team. Korin couldn't help but wonder why the party had to consist of nothing but sweaty, gruff men. It was at this moment that he should have realized something was amiss. The Sword Emperor's granddaughter had perished on her way to the entrance ceremony, and the final boss of the first stage, Marriott, had gone missing. The game's plot had deviated from its original story, and, even more troubling, was the way Park Sihu had revealed his true personality. Korin should have harbored suspicions. Marriott Dunalef was one of the game's heroines, yet neither Korin nor Sihu had the chance to meet her due to her disappearance. Korin was shocked as he examined Marriott Dunalef's staff, questioning why it was here. Korin's thoughts raced as he considered, Park Sihu, that scoundrel. I followed him because he kept sneaking out at night, but to think there was an underground place like this, it's like his secret inventory. His attention was drawn to an odachi, which had also vanished when another heroine, Alicia, disappeared. These hidden items were not isolated cases, they were the belongings of characters who had gone missing as they advanced through the game. And there, in a state of disbelief, he saw Marriott Dunalef herself, imprisoned in a tube, her wrists and feet shackled by chains. Korin was engrossed in examining Marriott when Park Sihu suddenly materialized behind him. The enigmatic figure asked, "Why are you here?" Korin, still bewildered, inquired, "What's all this? You claimed you were after Marriott and lost her back then." Park Sihu nonchalantly replied, "Ah, that. She's a demon, anyway. I'm just using her efficiently." Korin's gaze fell upon a device extracting elixir from Marriott's body. Park Sihu remarked, "You've had your fair share of that elixir, too." Korin's stomach churned, and he felt like he might vomit. He knelt on the ground, prompting Park Sihu to ask about his condition. With frustration in his voice, Korin demanded, "Why, Park Sihu, why?" Park Sihu explained, "In order to efficiently progress the story, of course." Your route is just too exasperating. You keep suffering losses by trying to save people. You spare those bothersome individuals like Jaeger and Lark. You insist on protecting people we can't control without raising their friendship levels. This is the most efficient approach. Trust me, I'm better at this game than you. Korin felt betrayed, realizing that Park Sihu had deceived him from the very beginning. This man was no novice. Seething with anger, Korin sat on the ground and inquired, "How many have you killed?" Park Sihu responded callously, "I'm not sure. Let's see, if I get just 3 more, it'll be 100,000. Korin clenched his teeth and was consumed by anger, thinking, this monster is not even human. He grabbed Park Sihu's clothes and shouted, "You monster." Park Sihu's cold voice broke through the tense air as he said, "Wake up. They're all NPCs. You've killed plenty too," Korin retorted, shouting, "The ones I killed were evil bastards with no saving grace. They were trying to end the world. If you're so obsessed with efficiency, then why did you take the Odachi? Why would a mage take a hidden piece meant for a knight?" Korin's anger was palpable as he slammed Park Sihu into the wall, demanding to know why he had gone to such lengths to create this elixir farm. Park Sihu's menacing smile only infuriated Korin further. When Korin accused him of needing a sandbag for his sociopathic tendencies, Park Sihu's smile vanished, and he forcefully hurled Korin against the glass where Marriott's lifeless body was suspended. With a cold, unnerving smile, Park Sihu claimed, "You're pushing me insane, after all I've done for you. You shouldn't talk to me like that. All I think about is you. I should be your everything. I should be your world. You don't even know your place and get hurt sticking your nose into everyone's business. All you do is stare at bitches. I can't hold it in anymore." Korin was bewildered by Park Sihu's sudden change in demeanor. He cautiously moved away, saying, "You're not this kind of character. We've been together for 199 chapters, why are you suddenly trying to change the genre?" Park Sihu explained, "I removed everything that could get in my way until now, all for our future." Korin accused, "You bastard. Then the reason you only put guys in our party was that you're gay?" Park Sihu replied, "The other men are just for show, so don't mind them. The only one I really love is you." Unable to contain his fear and frustration, Korin punched Park Sihu. He thought, "He's terrifying. I'm scared as hell. I never even got to have a girlfriend before." Korin tried to escape, but his foot was ensnared by a purple magic vine that quickly immobilized his entire body. Tearful and terrified, Korin realized he was at Park Sihu's mercy. Park Sihu ominously declared, "You can't run from me. I'm going to trap you, forever. You're mine." Korin was bound and a magical chain encircled him, while Park Sihu leered at him with lust in his eyes. Park Sihu said, "In this fake world, you're the only real thing." Korin shouted, "You're freaking me out. You're an insane bastard." As Park Sihu cast a purple magic circle, he uttered, "Everything will be over soon. Once this fight is over, we'll be together forever." Suddenly, Korin snapped back to reality as if emerging from a shallow river. He overheard people talking about the hero Park Sihu, stating that he had always fought alone and would surely defeat the final boss. Korin thought anxiously, once he defeats the final boss, what will happen to me? A system message flashed on the screen, announcing the player's death and the failure of the challenge. Korin wondered, did that son of a bitch just lose? Once again, the morning sun and gentle breeze filtered through the window, swaying the curtain. Korin awoke, sitting on his bed, and looked out to see tall houses and an academy. He realized that he had regressed to 3 years ago, to the very first day he arrived. Gripping his hand tightly, Korin bit his lip and tears welled up in his eyes as he whispered, "I need to kill him. Park Sihu, I need to kill a player." The Rodian River flooding incident was a grim memory, especially during the water monster subjugation quest. The dam had ruptured, engulfing an entire village in its watery embrace. 1,000 water monsters and thousands of townspeople perished in the deluge. The horrific scene left a deep scar, but Park Sihu had been grinning and laughing, exclaiming, "This is awesome." At that time, I couldn't comprehend his amusement. But looking back, it was evident that he saw an opportunity to profit, to monopolize experience points amidst the tragedy. That man was a devil, and I had to stop him. Now, at this point, Park Sihu was no more than a rank 5 player like myself. All the factors that strengthened players were concentrated at Merkaba Academy, and once he entered the academy, he'd undoubtedly grow much more powerful. While he wasn't yet a monster, there was no telling how quickly he'd ascend the ranks. The Academy's entrance ceremony was just 5 days away. In other words, the only chance to stop Park Sihu was right now. Korin was sprinting, rushing to collect the tools he needed to thwart the hero. A tutorial quest unfolded, involving a carriage on its way to Merkabah City that broke down in a monster-infested forest. The task was to protect the passengers and security guards until the carriage was repaired. During this quest, Leon and Laura caught a horned rabbit and expressed their gratitude to the hero, Park Sihu, for his help. An elderly man holding a lamp informed them that the carriage had been fixed, and Leon suggested they get going. Laura, on the other hand, expressed her desire to sleep. But then, a shout from behind interrupted their departure. A massive log was hurtling towards them. To avoid the log, Leon pushed Laura out of harm's way, and the log crashed to the ground. Alarmed, they drew their swords. From the midst of the chaos, they heard a cry. It was a rank 2 monster, a werewolf, and it growled menacingly. Korin arrived at the scene, cursing himself for not being able to prevent this. He had rushed here as soon as he could, but it was too late to save those people. He wished he had more time to prepare to prevent the tragedy. The werewolf attacked, and Laura was struck, falling to the ground unconscious. Leon shouted to Park Sihu, "Quickly! Get on the carriage, I'll buy you some time." Park Sihu turned to the others, urging them to board the carriage, saying, "Go ahead. We'll catch up." Despite his intentions to help, Park Sihu was held back by Alicia. He protested, "I can't abandon Leon and run away." When Park Sihu finally reached the monster, Leon had already been defeated, and the werewolf had him by the neck. The hero calmly gazed at the monster, awaiting its next move. Korin observed closely, contemplating his next actions. He thought, "I have to confirm it before intervening. Is Park Sihu truly the hero destined to save this world, or is he a possessed player like me?" As the monster drew closer to Park Sihu, his demeanor suddenly changed, and he couldn't help but smile, saying, "He's huge." The werewolf growled menacingly, and Alicia shouted a warning, "Get down." She swung her sword at the werewolf, attempting to strike it, but the creature blocked her attack with its claw. Alicia was taken aback as the werewolf stopped her attack, and she was sent sliding due to the force of her own momentum. Park Sihu was positioned behind Alicia, and she told him to step back, declaring, "I'll handle this thing." Unbeknownst to Alicia, Park Sihu had sinister intentions. The second daughter of the Arden family who possessed Odachi, one of the 6 king swords. The most influential party member and a named character is Alicia Arden. He pretended to be frightened but discreetly drew a knife. As Alicia glanced behind, she saw that Park Sihu was about to stab her in the back. At that moment, Korin realized that even in the tutorial episode, Easter eggs existed. Such as Alicia Arden's death event. He understood, "So it is you after all, Sihu." Alicia attempted to evade the impending attack, but the blade scratched her, leaving her in pain and feeling dizzy. She realized she had been poisoned. Sihu maintained a smile and claimed, "I'm sorry. My hand slipped because I was too nervous." However, it was clear he had done it intentionally. The werewolf growled again and launched another attack. Alicia, despite her poisoned state, bravely blocked the creature's strikes. Korin pondered the situation, realizing that if Alicia Arden died during this quest, he would acquire Odachi. With the sword in his possession, he could potentially join Lunia Arden's party, a renowned swordsman. As Sihu watched Alicia fend off the werewolf, he considered that she was poisoned but not dying easily, possibly due to being a named NPC. Alicia created some space between her and the monster, telling herself to remain calm. She closed her eyes and focused, and when she opened them, she used her impeccable footwork skills. As the monster prepared to attack, her sword brimmed with aura. Sihu thought to himself that she might actually defeat the werewolf alone, which was not part of his plan. In an attempt to disrupt her, Sihu wound up and threw his dagger, aiming it at Alicia. However, she chose to pull her sword to block the dagger rather than finishing her attack on the werewolf. In that crucial moment, the monster closed in on her. But Alicia reacted swiftly, pulling her hand back to stab the werewolf, eventually killing it. However, she was now covered in blood and trapped under the lifeless body of the werewolf, on the brink of losing consciousness. Sihu seized her sword and exclaimed, "Let's go." Odachi acquired. This gear is only usable with a special skill, but I'll think about that later. Killing the NPC will bring in experience too, right? He contemplated killing Alicia for experience points and stared at her mercilessly. Alicia's battered body was drenched in blood, tears welling up in her eyes as she gazed at Park Sihu. Suddenly, a bag of powder exploded in Sihu's face, causing him to cough and momentarily distracting him. As the powder enveloped Park Sihu's face, he demanded to know, "Who is it? Who the heck is it? Come out right now." Suddenly, a group of one-horned rabbits appeared. Topanic mushrooms are the favorite of forest monsters. Topanic mushrooms are coated with powder on their whole body. So in the eyes of the forest monsters, Park Sihu is nothing but fresh meat marinated in some tasty powder. As the monsters closed in on Sihu, Korin saw this as an opportunity to assist Alicia. He moved quickly, pulling her away from the dire situation and muttered, "Thank God. She's still alive." Korin noticed the fang of the wolf that Alicia had killed and used a knife to extract it. However, at that moment, Park Sihu, now holding the odachi, appeared behind him, demanding to know who he was. Korin replied calmly, "3 horned rats killed in 1 minute. Great to have odachi, isn't it?" As Korin stood up, Park Sihu was taken aback, realizing who he was. He uttered, "You are Korin Locke." Park Sihu took a combat stance and asked Korin how he had come to be there. Korin pondered that perhaps Sihu had lost his memories from before, which could work in his favor. With a nonchalant tone, Korin said, "Hey, you're going to cut your hand off if you hold the sword like that." Sihu glanced at his hand holding the sword, and it was at that moment that Korin seized the opportunity to throw the remaining powder he had at Sihu's face. The powder impaired Sihu's vision, causing him to swing his sword blindly, despite his inability to see clearly. Korin realized that while Sihu might be clumsy with the sword, he was undoubtedly physically superior. It left Korin with no choice but to push himself further. Armed with the werewolf fang, he skillfully avoided Sihu's slashes and closed the gap between them, targeting Sihu's neck. However, Sihu survived the initial attack. Korin launched a series of consecutive strikes with the werewolf fang, and he focused on the thought of the fang piercing Sihu's neck. He wanted to ensure that his attention was entirely on the fang. Korin found his chance when Sihu was blocking his right hand but failed to notice Korin's left hand, also armed with a weapon. Korin stabbed Sihu in the shoulder. As Sihu lay on the ground, Korin positioned himself above him and raised his right hand with the fang. He attacked, the fang piercing Sihu's hand, but Korin was determined and pushed the fang towards Sihu's neck. Sihu tried to stop it, but Korin's strength prevailed, and the fang pierced Sihu's neck, causing his demise. Korin thought, "Thank you for the past life. I have to admit, I can get stronger thanks to you. Even so, I have no regrets about this because I killed the seed of a monster." A system error message appeared, indicating that the player was dead. The system began calculating the odds of clearing the main scenario and recommended the first best judgment world backup. The system examined Korin's potential, ideology, compatibility, and the player log. It then passed the previous player's experience down to Korin Locke, making him the hero and granting him the minimal backup in case of a scenario collapse and minimal stats. With this succession, Korin was bestowed with the title of AAA-Class Knight Martial Master's Successor Sub-Player. As Korin looked at the announcement about being a sub-player, he wondered if it meant he would finally get a stat window. However, his thoughts were interrupted by a cough behind him. It was Alicia, huffing and struggling. Korin immediately went to her and asked if she was okay. Alicia replied, "No, I'm not okay. I can't see." Korin observed her symptoms and deduced that she felt dizzy, couldn't smell, and had ringing ears. He recognized the symptoms as those of the peacock tree frog's poison, which was challenging to create without a combination window. Fortunately, Alicia's combination level wasn't high enough to cause immediate death. Korin removed his belt and found the fang stuck in Alicia's body. He realized he needed to stop the bleeding and detoxify her. Using his belt as a tourniquet, he assured her, "It's okay. I'm a master at stopping bleeding and detoxification, you see." Korin pondered that if Alicia bit her tongue, it would be a significant problem. He looked at Park Sihu's arm, put it in Alicia's mouth, and instructed her to bite on it as hard as she could. He then removed his clothes, wrapped them around Alicia's waist, and pulled the fang out of her body while she bit down in pain. Korin thought, "I don't know why I traveled 3 years back, but I returned and killed a player. The person who died in my previous life is alive right now. I saved a person. That's enough." Korin began preparing an antidote and reassured Alicia, saying, "I'm making the antidote. Hang in there. Don't you worry, people don't die so easily." Alicia, wanting to know his name, asked him. Korin placed a wet towel on her forehead and replied, "You don't need to know. Stop thinking too much and get some rest. I'll wake you up once the antidote is ready." Alicia accepted his response, and Korin thought it would be better to keep his actions as secret as possible. Korin drew a magic circle and contemplated the situation. He realized that as per the story of the heroic legend of Arhan, the player needed to become the hero who would save the world by resolving incidents and accidents at the academy. The hero's main role was to take down countless villains and ultimately defeat the final boss to prevent the world from ending. However, since Park Sihu, who had played the role of the hero, had died, Korin believed that he had to step into that role. Yet, he faced issues with the system, which had errors and denied him permission to use certain features like the inventory and combination window. Korin understood that he had to rely on his training and external factors to fulfill his role as the hero, as he was no longer just a normal possessor or an extra. He had spent 3 years preparing for this moment and was determined to succeed. Korin drew something inside the magic circle, and suddenly, an energy with the color of fire materialized around the circle. He knew it worked and was relieved because he had been desperate to survive. In his past life, the only magic he had learned was about ancient letters with magical powers. These ancient letters were known as the runes of the 3 commandments, representing duty, restraint, and oath. They were a source of superhuman strength but also the cause of destruction. Korin decided to inscribe all 3 commandments onto his body. He bit his finger and used his blood to draw ancient letters on his arm. The first one was the duty rune, which granted the caster extra powers when honoring a self-imposed oath. Korin explained that it was demanding, and he needed to make promises that he would have to follow until the end. As Korin finished inscribing the duty rune, smoke started emanating from the ancient letter, and he declared, "I shall not turn a blind eye to the misfortunes of the good people." The system acknowledged it, and the commandment of the duty rune became, "I shall not turn a blind eye to the misfortunes of the good people." A system message appeared, stating that his status would rise whenever he cleared a quest, but there was a penalty for failure. Korin bit his finger again and drew another ancient rune, this time on his right shoulder. It was the restraint rune, and he said, "Restraint, I do not perceive spirits." The system acknowledged it, and the commandment of the restraint rune became, "I do not perceive spirits." This commandment made it so that astral beings couldn't affect Korin, but physical beings had an increased hit ratio against him. Another system warning appeared, stating that upon disobeying the bind, he would receive 600% damage against all subjects as opponents. The system activated the restraint rune, making astral beings unable to hit him and increasing the hit ratio against physical beings. Korin thought of the restraint rune as a protective shield guarding him from all astral beings in the world. Korin connected the final ancient letter on his chest, which represented the oath rune. He knew this commandment carried a great risk and was not used by either him or Park Sihu in his previous life. He was confident that he didn't need to worry because he was determined to save the world. With that, the commandments were complete. A system message appeared, stating that the commandments would now be applied to the sub-player. It warned that failure to uphold his oath would result in inevitable death. Alicia awoke, finding herself in a bed, no longer in the forest. She sat up and felt a twinge of pain in her waist. A nurse approached her and asked how she was feeling. Confused, Alicia inquired about her location. "Where am I?" The nurse replied, "You're in Merkabah City Emergency Hospital." Alicia then asked about the person who had brought her there. "Where is the person who brought me here?" The nurse responded, "Pardon? Your guardian just left." Surprised by this revelation, Alicia was reminded by the nurse that she couldn't move yet. Determined, she inquired about her belongings. "It's okay. Where's my stuff?" She noticed her belongings by her bedside, including Korin's bloodied belt. She picked it up and remarked, "Is this my savior's belt? It still has blood on it." Alicia called the nurse and asked, "Is there a place that sells honey bomb candy?" However, the nurse informed her that she could only have stew for now. 3 days after the tutorial quest, it was the day of Merkabah Academy's entrance ceremony. Korin checked his wallet and realized he needed his student ID to enter. To his surprise, he found a letter in his wallet that he didn't remember putting there. He read the letter, addressed to "My proud son," and it expressed pride and encouragement to become a protector of many like those who were by his side. Korin wondered when this letter had been secretly placed in his wallet. He contemplated, Korin Locke is a normal, incompetent child. But even he has a family. When I first possessed this body, I acted awkward and unfamiliar. But they treated me as family without change. And that's how I began to love my family in this world. That is the difference between Park Sihu and me. The scene shifted to Merkaba Academy, where students were gathering and wondering why there were so many trains. Marriott greeted the students and Korin, and they introduced themselves. Marriott commented on Korin's height and offered him a potato. As they boarded the train, Marriott acted as a tour guide, explaining the academy's facilities. She pointed out the creation building, where magic students conducted their research. Marriott, a first-class second-year Merkaba Academy mage, received the admiration of all and walked a prosperous path. Korin reflected, as life goes on, people experience a lot of unpredictable misfortunes and tragedies in this world, and there are depths of despair that must happen to Marriott Dunalef in the future. She is the first act's final boss. Upon arriving at their destination, Marriott distributed potatoes and sweet potatoes to everyone. Marriott bid farewell to the students as the train departed, wishing them good luck. Inside the academy, the new students from various levels and classes filled the space. Korin noticed that the space expansion magic was being initiated, rendering the students unable to see anything. An authoritative voice of the professor echoed, reassuring the students not to be flustered. Korin recognized the voice as that of Old Man Heyman, whose approach was always rigorous. The world's population had a history of battling against an evil tribe, and the most effective weapon against them was superhumans who could wield aura and mana. The Guardian Academy, Merkaba, was the place that produced these superhumans. Another professor, Knight Faculty Professor Fermac Damon, introduced himself and remarked, "Well, all of you must be here to either become a knight or a mage, and as soon as you came in here, a certificate must have been issued. But it's annoying to act like you are all that when you're probably just the average Joe. So, let's see your abilities." A system window appeared, displaying each student's name, rank, and abilities. Korin noticed that his overall rank was 6th, which he found boring, but his physical stats were disappointing. Professor Damon instructed the students to stand in front of the number sign corresponding to their rank. Korin, as a 6th rank, stood first in line, contemplating that there must be a cap of 400 people if he was in the bottom 1%. Damon smiled and wished the students luck in their journey. They then lined up according to their ranks. One professor noted, "This year's students have a lot of diamonds in the rough." The mage professor stated, "There is no need to measure the first rank and second rank students. Let's wait until we finish assessing all the other students." Among the second rank students, some notable ones included Alicia Arden, the granddaughter of a sword genius, Avalon's druid Yule, mercenary of sword control Dron Warski, and golem sorcerer Kranil Ludin. The only student in the first rank was the heavenly Yaksha, Warren. The mage professor expressed concern about Warren's enrollment, questioning the director's decision. Another professor suggested excluding the incompetent 6th rank students right from the start, which angered the mage professor, who reminded them of the director's directive to support all students in their learning journey. The test began with a snap of a professor's fingers, and a weapon case appeared in front of Korin. In 30 seconds, monsters were to swarm, and the students had to deal with as many as they could. Korin thought the test was as unfriendly as ever, putting students in a place with nothing and making them fight monsters based on their level. Korin opened the weapon case, knowing that most 5th and 6th rank students would likely just grab whatever they could, usually a sword. However, he opted for a spear, as he believed it took a significant amount of time to master a sword. He grabbed a spear and faced 3 short hounds, 5th rank monsters that began growling menacingly. Korin assumed a throwing stance and launched the spear, hitting the monsters. Even though the remaining monsters rushed toward him, they were easily defeated. Korin couldn't help but quip, "I'm sorry, but I have way too much experience killing you guys." After Korin successfully eliminated the monsters, he checked the time and noted that it took him just 12 seconds to do so. This accomplishment stirred a sense of determination within him, prompting thoughts about his past life. He remembered how he had been unable to defeat these very same short hounds, leading to his elimination. However, this time around, he was driven by the conviction that things would be different, vowing to conquer these creatures until he progressed to the next rank. Despite reaching the 5-minute mark, the expected next wave of monsters failed to materialize. This unexpected delay led Korin to question whether there was a malfunction in the system. Meanwhile, the other students engaged in the battle against the hounds were growing increasingly frantic, running and shouting in fear, unable to effectively vanquish the monsters. Observing the students, the overseeing professor pondered their predicament. He couldn't help but wonder how these students would fare if they couldn't even handle these relatively low-level challenges. Drawing from his own experience, he recalled the swift efficiency with which he had dispatched 5th-rank monsters in just a minute and 22 seconds. It made him question the performance of the 5th and 6th-rank students, as they appeared to be struggling. However, when the professor shifted his attention to the magical viewing ball, he was taken aback by the sight of Korin seated in the 6th rank, seemingly nonchalant and yawning. This perplexing display led the professor to consider whether there might be a malfunction in the monster summoning process. In response to this, the professor decided to summon 3 more short hounds for Korin. Korin was left perplexed as to why the professor summoned the short hound again instead of a higher-ranking monster. After summoning a monster for Korin, the professor looked at another student and failed to witness Korin defeating the monster once more. The professor directed his attention to one student, assuming it was the first passerby, and it took him precisely 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Unbeknownst to him, Korin had actually defeated 2 sets of that particular monster. The professor believed that the 3rd-ranking students would only require 2 to 3 minutes to defeat the monster. Curious about the activities of the 5th and 6th-ranking students, the professor turned to observe them, only to find Korin sitting and yawning once again, causing further confusion. The professor speculated that there might be a malfunction in the monster summoning process. However, upon examining the situation, the white-haired professor dismissed the notion, stating that Madame Josephine's magic had never made a mistake in the past 20 years. The professor in charge insisted that the monster summoning was malfunctioning, citing the apparent failure to summon the monster. In response, the white-haired professor asked if the in-charge professor had personally witnessed the monster not being summoned. The in-charge professor questioned the significance of that observation, to which the white-haired professor replied, "So you didn't see it happen?" To verify if the monster had indeed been summoned, the in-charge professor proceeded to summon Short Hound once more. This decision only served to irritate Korin further, as he wondered why these same creatures were being summoned repeatedly, making him feel as if he were merely training a dog. And Korin was growing increasingly agitated. Korin impressively took a stance to throw 3 spears simultaneously, hitting all his targets with remarkable precision. In a swift 7.3 seconds, he successfully eliminated all the short hounds. The astonishing display of skill caught the professor's attention, prompting them to call for Professor Fermac to witness this extraordinary performance. The overseeing professor inquired Professor Fermac about the fastest records achieved by the 3rd and 4th-ranked students he was responsible for. Fermac replied, "There's a kid named Jaeger got 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Why are you asking?" Upon hearing that a student named Jaeger had accomplished a time of 3 minutes and 30 seconds, the professor's curiosity was piqued. He speculated that Korin's adept spear-throwing skills might be attributed to his hunter lineage. To challenge Korin further, the professor decided to summon a 4th-ranked monster, a mad boar. However, Korin effortlessly defeated the boar within a mere 3.7 seconds, leaving the professors astonished yet again. Undeterred, the professor summoned a 3rd-ranked monster, an owl bear, and warned Korin that this encounter would not be easy. Despite the owl bear's size and power, Korin appeared unfazed and relaxed as he stood before it. When the owl bear attacked with a punch, Korin swiftly sidestepped and countered by thrusting his spear into the creature's body. The creature retaliated. Korin used a magic rune to ignite a fire on the owl bear, but the effect was minimal. He then leapt high into the air and plunged his spear into the owl bear's head, ultimately defeating it. His performance not only caught the attention of the professors but also led them to realize that Korin was no ordinary 6th-ranked student. The white-haired professor expressed his anticipation for seeing Korin battle evil spirits. And the professor suggested that after this, they should initiate a 5th-rank evil spirit test. As the evil spirit was summoned, Korin noticed that he couldn't perceive or interact with it due to the restraint penalty, which prevented him from sensing or interfering with souls, ghosts, or spirits. This led him to give up on the evil spirit test. Korin's test results were displayed, showing his exceptional performance in the monster tests, where he set new records. Evil Spirit Test. 5th rank Ghost withdraw, 4th rank Hexwraiths disqualified, 3rd rank Banshee disqualified. Monster Test. 5th rank Short Hound, 4th rank Mad Boar, 3rd rank Owl Bear, 1.3 seconds, 3.7 seconds, 11 seconds. Korin's remarkable achievements in these tests left the professors in awe of his abilities. After the test concluded, Korin greeted the professor in charge of him, who was quite surprised by Korin's decision to withdraw from the test. He pondered about what kind of student Korin was. With the expansion magic lifted, the students began chatting with one another. Some quickly made new friends, while others shared their test results and discussed their encounters with the owl bear and the banshee. Korin spotted Jaeger Hinchpeter, the student who had initiated a fight with a player at the beginning of the story and subsequently met a grim end at the hands of Park Sihu. Although Jaeger had an arrogant and somewhat delinquent personality, Korin recognized that it was not uncommon for someone of his age to display such behavior. Nonetheless, he considered Jaeger a bit of a lunatic. Meanwhile, Lark overheard students discussing their struggles against shorthounds and ghosts, which hit him hard. Korin reflected on Lark's past life, in which he struggled with an inferiority complex, resorted to slandering Korin and Sihu, and ultimately met the same fate as Jaeger. The director of the academy, Aryu Kasser, addressed the students over the microphone, emphasizing the importance of self-responsibility in their journey to become strong. He acknowledged that the academy could only assist them in taking the correct first step, with the rest of the journey being the students' own responsibility. Following the director's speech, the students dispersed, returning to their assigned rooms or other areas within the academy. Jaeger, having declared himself the third-ranked knight, noticed Lark sitting alone in a corner and approached him. Upon learning that Lark had achieved the 5th rank, Jaeger started to bully him, taunting him for his inability to defeat the ghost or shorthound during the test. Korin noticed the bullying and decided to intervene. He shouldered Jaeger, offering a compliment about Jaeger's tattoo and commenting on its neatness. He also mentioned that the tattoo on the back indicated one's blood type for quick transfusions in case of injury, suggesting that Jaeger was well prepared. Korin's remarks were a strategic way to defuse the situation and shift the focus away from Lark's rank. Jaeger was delighted by Korin's compliments and began sharing more about his tattoo. He mentioned that his mother, who was a tattoo artist, had done it for him. She initially specialized in linework but created Jaeger's tattoo in the old-school style. Korin praised Jaeger's mother's skill and asked if he had tattoos anywhere else. In his mind, Korin recalled the events from his previous life, where Jaeger's mother had visited the academy when her son went missing. She explained that the tattoos were not merely for show but were born out of concern for her son, who had entered the Guardian Academy. Jaeger eagerly revealed another tattoo on his arm, representing Merkaba Academy, with the symbol of a flying chariot. Korin showed genuine enthusiasm and introduced himself as Korin. Locke. Jaeger introduced himself as Jaeger Hinchpeter, and Lark, the man in glasses, also provided his name. Alicia observed the interactions between Korin, Jaeger, and Lark. She was impressed by how Korin had naturally intervened to stop the bullying, thinking that he seemed like a good person. In the midst of all this, Korin's thoughts returned to the topic of Lark's abilities. Lark possessed the ability to memorize. Korin contemplated his free skill book and couldn't help but chuckle menacingly. As Alicia watched Korin laugh, she found herself captivated by him, even admiring his smile. She wondered about the kind of person Korin was. Alicia clearly developing feelings for the protagonist. Merkaba Academy offered many facilities to its students, most of which were provided free of charge. The student cafeterias were more affordable than eating outside, and the dorms were also free. Among these facilities, the most recommended one was the training rooms. The reason was simple. The training rooms made even the impossible training possible, such as practicing against invisible spirit bodies. Korin was in one of the training rooms, using his spear to spar with a spirit. Some senior students watched him and discussed his actions, noting that most students practiced with spirit bodies in their second semester. They assumed he must have come here after hearing a rumor about it. One of the students remarked, I heard there are countless second-year students who can't even catch wind-type spirit bodies." As the seniors conversed, Marriott became intrigued and turned her attention to Korin's training. Unfortunately, Korin's head was struck by a spirit, prompting a student to mock him, saying, "See. That's what a first year gets for fighting a spirit body." The student laughed at Korin's expense. Korin huffed, questioning if it was still too much for him. Suddenly, a white-haired professor arrived and inquired if Korin was a freshman. Korin respectfully greeted the instructor, and the professor asked why he was practicing against a spirit body. Korin replied that he was training his spear skills. The professor asked once more if he was confident he could do it, to which Korin replied, "I will do it." Korin wondered why this old man had approached him out of the blue and if something had gone wrong during the entrance exam. The professor examined him closely, then smiled and commented, "That's a great spirit." He rewarded Korin with 10 meal tickets and encouraged him to come find him if he succeeded, promising to praise him. Korin was taken aback but thought, "That scared me. I got nervous for no reason. A guy who shows affection using food. Anyhow, this is a good sign, right? Now, let's get started again." Marriott, who had been observing, continued to watch him as he trained with the spirits. Using his spear, Korin managed to hit 2 spirits successfully. However, one more spirit struck him in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground. As Korin lay on the ground, exhausted and sweaty, a handkerchief fell onto his face. Marriott approached him and handed him a glass. She asked, "Junior, is it hard?" Korin replied, "Yeah, it's exhausting." Using her magic, Marriott filled the glass with water and encouraged him to rest, telling him he had worked hard enough. Korin received the glass and sighed, expressing his determination. "No, I don't have a next time, though I might have had one 3 years ago." He remembered that back then, Park Sihu had been with him, and they had the player's stat window, potions, and skill books from the combination window. However, Park Sihu was no longer with him, as Korin had killed him. So now, he had to do everything on his own. After drinking the water, Korin thanked Marriott for her support. She offered him words of encouragement, saying, "I think you can always give up later." Korin stood up, determined to become stronger and test his limits. He knew that he had to push himself beyond what he thought was possible, using the abilities he had acquired in his previous life. Korin resumed his training, practicing various techniques with his spear, such as the ominous serpent stab, tiger wind swing, block capture plaque counterattack, returning heaven spin, and the pagoda tree mountain throw. He realized that he didn't possess a strong body or vast magical power or aura, but the 3 years of knowledge he had were valuable assets. To overcome monsters and geniuses, he had to work harder than anyone. With a red aura enveloping his body, Korin threw his spear into the air and then caught it again. He was brimming with aura as he used the slithering serpent calamity serpent intent technique to attack a spirit, causing it to explode. Marriott watched in awe, thinking, "Outstanding." She was truly impressed by Korin's skills. However, after his powerful attack, Korin was weakened and fell from the air along with his spear. He realized he had pushed himself too far and couldn't move his body. The next day at the academy, Marriott greeted the students and introduced them to the school facilities. She emphasized the importance of the school's pride, but Korin was more concerned with improving his physical capabilities and less reliant on elixirs. Korin approached Lark, who was reading a book, and invited him to get something to eat. He whispered to Lark that they should also discuss grimoires. They went to the library, where Korin explained that grimoires were skill books that allowed you to acquire corresponding magic or traits just by reading them. The Academy's library was vast, and it concealed grimoires. Lark agreed to help, and Korin explained that as long as they fulfilled the conditions, they could obtain the grimoire with the desired traits. Korin admired Lark's dedication and knowledge but knew that having a grimoire would make a significant difference in their abilities. While searching for something in the library, Korin dropped many books, and Lark asked him to stop playing around. However, Korin found the hidden door, and it opened. Lark was surprised and asked how he had found it. Korin didn't answer and was eager to enter the hidden door. Lark insisted they wait for him, and as they walked inside, Lark found it eerie. Korin reminded Lark about their agreement to repel evil spirits and asked him to fulfill his promise. Lark agreed, but he was uncertain about what he needed to do. Suddenly, Korin playfully punched him in the face and laughed menacingly, saying, "Let's get started, shall we?" Lark found himself lying on the ground, shocked by Korin's actions.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more content. Feel free to leave a comment down below sharing your thoughts or suggestions. If you want to stay updated on all our latest uploads, click the notification bell icon. And hey, why not check out some of our other videos popping up on the screen right now? If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really means a lot. Peace.